I'm Nancy Pfaff, and this is Sacred Quest Reno. Welcome to a channel that is non-sectarian and interfaith and supports your spiritual journey. You'll notice when I refer to the divine, I'll be using different words. Jerome Waddle, creator and producer of My Dragon Theater Productions, is watching the chat, so do say hello. Subscribe if you like, click the bell and you'll get notices of when we go live, and like it if you do. If you have questions or want to share your experience with me, just write me at sacredquestreno@gmail.com. This Lectio Divina series brings a simple, experiential ritual practice to the forefront in these busy modern days. During our time together, we'll have about a half an hour to create a sacred space and to listen to an inspired reading. In the process, you can experience the radiant divine presence that permeates the universe. I'm presenting these readings in a variety of perspectives so that they will inspire us to get in touch with the perennial wisdom that is unchanging. I'm a spiritual director who listens with you for the activity of the divine in your heart. Out of this chemistry, awareness arises so that you can perceive and live out of your true self more and more. I have a spiritual director who I meet with once a month, and I belong to a peer supervision group for accountability. You know, in each of us, there is that something that is free, untouched by trauma, full of life, vitality, and a deep peace. It can hold all the darkness and all the light. Something we are taking time to connect with consciously through Lectio Divina. I call this something agape. It is unconditional love manifesting as being itself. Our reading for Lectio Divina tonight will be a quote by Pema Chodron, a Buddhist nun who was once married with children. I've noticed with Lectio Divina that if I regularly choose a particular space in my home, a particular chair, it is easier to open to spirit. I can't always do that, and I have a simple ritual to use wherever I am to signal the body and mind that I'm opening up to spirit. My intention is always to relax, to let go of all my concerns and open to the great mystery, the divine presence, to pay attention to what arises within. I invite you to have a safe, quiet place for this sacred time and a ritual to mark a conscious choice to enter into your inner world. The key is having an intention to connect with the divine center. I chose Pema Chodron because my spiritual director recently referred me to her way of meditation and prayer called TONGLEN. It is used for sharing our pleasures and decreasing our suffering. I'll share more in a few minutes. Now about Pema. What makes Pema's message resonate so strongly with people, no matter what their religion or spiritual path, is its universality. Each of us has experienced heartache. How we interact with that feeling, Pema says, can create the possibility of a more joyful life. In her most desperate moment, that's exactly what she learned to do. She understands our struggles because she has struggled. She's been married twice and had children. One husband fell in love with another woman and left them. As she tried to find her way forward, she taught school to support the family. Years later, while visiting a Sufi camp in the French Alps, Pema met a Tibetan Lama or master whom she studied with in London. Within a year, she took a Buddhist vow to spend the rest of her life helping others seek enlightenment and end their suffering. Kogyam Trungpa later became her teacher, and in 1981, Pema became the first American woman to become a fully ordained Buddhist nun in the Tibetan tradition. During her spiritual studies, she was given her name, Pema Chodron, which loosely translated is Lamp of the Truth. She's written books, including When Things Fall Apart, From Fear to Fearlessness, Living Beautifully with Uncertainty and Change, Joyful Mind, and many, many others. You can find her in videos and recordings on YouTube. I'll post 2 links. One is to her TONGLEN practice, a way of prayer and meditation, and the other is an interview with Oprah on SUPERSOUL Sunday, recorded April 9th, 2020. TONGLEN means taking and sending, and is done with the breath. We connect with presence, which is infinite, and breathe our suffering into that spaciousness. Feelings of heat, darkness, and heaviness. Then we breathe out our feelings of coolness, brightness, and light, a sense of freshness. We take it in and we transform it. And we can do this for others too. The TONGLEN attitude is an attitude we can use on the spot in order to soften our hearts and connect with others. For example, the TONGLEN attitude is to be present to our joys and to our suffering. Then we let them be a reminder to share our joy and decrease our suffering so there can be healing for ourselves and for others. We develop a deeper sense of connection with others as we extend our prayer to people we know and people we don't know. It's not being a do-gooder, but it's learning to come alongside others. I encourage you to go to Pema's material yourself. I'm just beginning this practice. Here are a few of her teachings. The joyful practice of TONGLEN involves noticing when we are experiencing pleasure. It could be as simple as noticing contentment when drinking our favorite beverage. Then we can say, may other people feel this. You can then put in the name of someone you know that needs this. May my sister Susan feel this. Perhaps there's a group of people on your mind, such as those out of work. May all those out of work feel this. When I took a tea break in mid-morning, the sweet and spicy brew delighted me. I probably wouldn't have noticed this simple pleasure if I hadn't been practicing TONGLEN. But I thought of a family member in crisis and sent, may he feel this. When it comes to suffering, Pema speaks of levels of courage needed for TONGLEN. The simplest level of TONGLEN, when we're feeling pain of any kind, dissatisfaction, unpleasantness, when life is difficult, we let that discomfort remind us to say, other people feel this too. Of course, we know this on one level, but when we say it consciously, it touches us in our inner world and brings strength and banishes a sense of isolation. The second level of courage is to add, may we all be free of this. I added this to my TONGLEN meditation when suffering anxiety, and as I prayed for myself and others, I gradually began to sense all these others as family. More courage is needed to say, since I'm feeling it anyway, may I feel it so this becomes a path for awakening for all of us. The most difficult level, needing great courage, is to say, since I'm feeling this way, may I feel it so others can be free of it. Before we enter into Lectio Divina, let's take a moment to recall our intention, and as a ritual, you might make a conscious gesture to mark a shift that we're going into the inner world. The general intention for Lectio Divina is to open to the divine presence. For our ritual tonight, I'm going to do some yoga breathing. I'm going to breathe in for the count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and breathe out for a count of 4. And I'm going to do that now. And why don't you do your ritual? Wow, that felt great. There will be 3 readings tonight, separated by a minute of silence. The third reading will be a special pre-recorded reading by Jerome Waddle. During the silence, you can ponder the words you've heard, relate the reading to yourself, be present to what arises, images, thoughts, feelings, or simply rest in the deep center. Now, to open up, let's breathe together 2 long, deep breaths. I'll do it with you. Now let's enter that place. A place like no other place. A time like no other time. You may close or soften your eyes. In pre-dawn darkness, you hear a storm in the distance. The sky lights up and there's rumbling. The sun starts to rise and the storm lessens. As the storm moves away, let your cares go with it. You can smell the freshness of the earth. There's a fresh taste in your mouth. Birds are starting to sing. In the clearing sky, you see a rainbow. You nod, knowing that death and rebirth are a continuing cycle. With a wise heart, listen to the readings. The first reading. We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. The healing comes from letting there be room for all this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. 1 minute of silence. The second reading. We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. The healing comes from letting there be room for all this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. One minute of silence. The third reading.
We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem. But the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. The healing comes from letting there be room for all this to happen. Room for for misery, for joy.
One minute of silence. Continue to be present to your experience. Coming back to this present moment, take a time to rub your hands as if you've never felt them before. Feel all those feelings. And look around your room and look and notice shapes and colors. In your openness to the divine presence, did you have a response within yourself at a certain place? I'll pause a moment for you to reflect. I see these inner movements as direct communication from the deep center, something you need right now. You may understand it now, or you may not. It may need to develop, to expand and deepen your understanding of what came up for you. Express it in some creative way. I like to write about it in my journal, or do a watercolor sketch, or share it with a friend. Let me tell you a story about my recent Lectio Divina experience. Sometimes what touches me, what comes up, causes me to face something I've been resisting. As I was doing research on Pema, some information came to my attention. I discovered that when she was principal teacher at Gampel Abbey at a Tibetan monastery in Nova Scotia, a woman had come to her to report a rape. She named the top leader of the abbey. Pema rejected her claim in an unkind manner. When I read this, I was disillusioned and angry, frankly. My heart hardened against Pema, and I started rethinking the subject for this video. I had this strong reaction because I was sexually abused in my teens, and I know how important it is to be believed and comforted. The deep center was trying to get my attention. Hardening my heart to another is a red flag for me. So I began exploring what was happening within. The first thing I realized was that I needed to heal. There was another layer to uncover. I had work to do to make conscious the anger over my own abuse and integrate it, to involve the body, pound a pillow and get really angry, shed some tears. Basically, doing that is a way to say, I accept this is true of me. and I accept the feelings and their emotions. Embodying the emotions brings a full acceptance, and then there is freedom. Then I remembered a wisdom teacher once told me that no matter how advanced we are spiritually, we can always act like an idiot. Only he used stronger language. I did some research on the Pema incident and learned that she realized her serious mistake with the woman and called her personally to see how she was now, to hear all she needed to say, and then to make a deep, sincere apology. She said she would do it differently now. She invited the woman to be in touch with her if she wanted to. And then Pema shared her story publicly. Pema's willingness to accept she was wrong, to reject the woman, was a sign to me of humility and regret. Her private and public confession and personal apology were signs of integrity. Her effort to make amends reminded me that she was human. My heart softened to her. There's a New Testament scripture verse I like that says, quote, "We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves," end quote. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 in the New Living Translation. An image I'd seen came to mind, a broken bowl mended with gold. This process is called Kintsugi, a Japanese technique. You pick up a broken vessel carefully and glue the pieces together with lacquer inflected with the most expensive gold powder. There should be no attempt to disguise the damage. The point is to render the fault lines beautiful and strong. The precious veins of gold are there to emphasize that breaks have a special meaning and merit all their own. Some words to a song by Leonard Cohen, his song Anthem, passed through my mind. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Cohen made a rare comment on his lyrics, quote, "This is not the place where you make things perfect, neither in your marriage, nor in your work, nor anything, nor your love of God, nor your love of family or country. The thing is imperfect. And worse, there is a crack in everything you can put together, physical objects, mental objects, constructions of any kind. But that's where the light gets in, and that's where the resurrection is, and that's where the repentance is. It is with the confrontation with the brokenness of things." Pema confronted her brokenness, and I'm confronting my brokenness, and the light is coming in. Now, before we go, I'd like to invite you to write me at sacredquestreno@gmail.com. Let me know what these videos mean to you, or leave that in a comment. Share this with your friends and like it. To enjoy Jerome Waddle's readings, just type Jerome Waddle in the YouTube search bar. I'm so glad you felt drawn to join me tonight. May the love of God that passes all understanding keep you in peace.